Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Gabe, guess what?
What?
I saw Endgame.
Oh, snap. Up top.
Oh,
bam.
yeah.
What'd you think?
I enjoyed it a lot. It was very exciting.
Yeah.
There were other emotions as well.
Yeah.
That I won't go into.
Disgust. Boredom.
Right?
No. It was a great movie. Lots of very heart-wrenching moments.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
There was a couple points where I was like, There's a few points that raised more questions than answered.
Okay.
And not necessarily a good way.
Yeah.
But I give those a pass because there weren't a lot of those that had to do with the main plot of the whole adventure.
I'd be willing to bet some of those have been clarified by the Russo brothers because they did an interview right after the movie came out, where people did bring up some there are a few things that could be plot holes, but they were like, oh well, here's our explanation for it. Yeah, so I thought Endgame was really good. I think we had thought about doing a bonus episode talking about it, but by this point, I think it might have passed. Maybe we'll do it for next month. Who knows?
I think we could do it next month. I talked about this a little bit with Steve, and I was like, by then it might be irrelevant. He's like, no, it won't be irrelevant. It's the culmination of 14 movies. Or was
22 movies?
22 movies?
Yeah.
I can't
remember.
11
years, I think. 11 years of movies, 22 movies.
A ton of movies. We still talk about Harry Potter.
Yeah. Good point.
It's going to be relevant. We'll talk about it we'll talk about it in the next bonus episode.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah. I mean, when we get to that, there will be a spoiler warning.
Right.
So I've started my third of my classes that I'm taking for my work. And, oh boy, this one's awful, Jeff. I thought it would be real easy because these ones are in the morning. That's not going to cut into my evenings at all. No, it very much cuts into my evenings because
you have to adjust your sleep schedule.
I have to adjust the night before. I have to go to bed several hours early, spend most of those hours laying there trying to sleep but unable to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I spend the whole day as a zombie because I only got 3 hours of sleep. It's rough. It's going to be nice in a couple months when this is all over.
Have you tried melatonin?
No.
You should try. You should try melatonin.
Yeah.
Melatonin is basically the stuff that your brain makes naturally anyway, that gets you to sleep. It doesn't keep you asleep. Or it doesn't really help you. It just it puts your body in that I am going to sleep mode.
Okay.
And you kind of just take over from there.
Gotcha.
I used to use it a lot, and I use the 10 milligram ones, which are way more than you need.
Okay.
So if you do, I mean, everyone consult your doctors. I don't want to. I'm not advocating the use of it. It's not even it's.
Hang on. Let me write that down. So Jeff said, take all the melatonin
all the drugs
that you can stomach.
No. Use as directed, but it is it is just it's just on the counter. It's not even over the counter. It's just on the shelf at Kroger.
Sure. So it is technically over the counter, which means you don't have to.
Right.
It's not behind the counter.
It's not behind the counter. Okay.
Anyway. It's a great term we've got there.
So that's something I used to use, but now I found that I don't have trouble. It helps you get to sleep. It doesn't help you with sleep. You don't sleep better. You just get to you're able to get to sleep easier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. So I hinted last week about there was a thing I was 3D printing that I was teasing Jeff about. I showed it to him after we finished recording, and I put in. If I haven't yet, I will put in the show notes for last week the video where I got this from. But I'll tell you guys what it is. So it's not a dice tower. It is a tower for dice. It's a dice holder. It's like a dice cup.
Yeah.
It looks like a tower with
little bricks
crenellations on top and bricks along the walls and everything. And then you can unscrew the top. You can hear that. We're doing that right now. You store your dice inside.
Yep.
And then underneath you can unscrew the bottom.
Bottom screws open.
And then, is that a reference to something?
Jurassic Park.
Oh, okay. And then in the bottom you can store a miniature.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Or, anything of your choice.
No, I guess. Yeah. But then the top that's screwed off, the little like top of the tower.
This is Gabe's favorite part.
My favorite part. It is the perfect size to hold a can of soda or beer or whatever.
It's like a coaster for
a coaster for your drink.
Yeah.
It's so good. So anyway, and then I've printed several of these. I've printed 6 so far. It takes somewhere between 10 and 20 hours to print.
I was going to say American-sized soda cans because I think that's a thing that like soda cans in other countries or like in different places.
I think in other countries they're narrower, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. And it's probably just smaller portions because
maybe, yeah.
Oh my goodness, consumption over here.
Yeah, I know. If you're in Australia and you get one of those giant beers, that probably won't fit in these. But,
sure.
But hey, I live in America, so I'm making stuff for Americans. Anyway, so I printed a whole bunch of these. I plan to give them out to
even
friends
though this
as gifts.
tower is a European design. Sorry. Anyway,
Jeff,
I'm done. You know what? I'm done.
Anyway, so they're so cool. I just really, really like them. They only cost like $2 or $3 to print of materials.
Yeah.
So hey, I'll make a bunch of those.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, check the show notes for last week. Maybe I'll put it in this week too. Who knows? Yeah. So I guess enough of that. You want to go ahead and get into this episode, Jeff?
No, let's talk more about Endgame.
Okay. So the part where it turned out that everybody was related, that lost me.
Oh, Gabe. All right, let's get going.
Good times. All right. So Jeff, I want you to imagine that...
Sorry. Now I'm just thinking that the Dragon's Horde's going to be like, it's, Thanos is here, but he's really tall and scaly.
Who can say, Jeff? No, I'll make this a real simple one. So you're walking down the road and you see a guy, he has a walking stick, something. He tells you he's going to the Dragon's Horde.
Sweet. I want to go.
All right. Sorry. So he's going to take you. He's going to take you to the Dragon's Horde.
Yes. Thanos is there, and he's really tall and scaly.
Yeah. Well, no, because the dragons aren't always bad.
Right. Yeah.
So today's item was submitted by Jason via Discord, and the item is the Walking Stick of the Fool. This +1 quarterstaff grants aid to those in search of adventure. It also has 3 magical abilities. Once per long rest, it grants its wielder beginner's luck, allowing them to make 1 saving throw of their choice at advantage. Once per week, it can be used to cast Find the Path. Although if a path has dangerous creatures or obstacles along the way, the staff will always lead its wielder along the path that is the most adventurous and dangerous.
Ooh, okay.
Finally, once a year... the staff can be used to aid the wielder in telling a joke so funny that it has the effects of the spell Hideous Laughter, except that it affects all creatures within a 30-foot range instead of just one target.
Oh, neat.
So yeah, kind of a little bit of a grab bag item along a particular theme.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of neat. I like the once per week and once per year abilities. I think those don't get used very much.
And I mean, like... I don't know. I feel like once per year is a bit much.
Yeah. Should be once every 2 years, you think?
No. I was gonna say once a month.
Yeah.
Because like keeping track of items that have that sort of time scale on them is rough enough. Mm-hmm. Like you're gonna forget to use it and like, oh, I could have used that. Sure. Or you would have. I don't know, like a number of years could have gone by between adventures or something like that, and it's like, well, okay, and the first year he told this joke, and then in the second year he told that joke. I don't know. I feel like items that have uses that go like longer periods than like long rest, can be kind of tough to keep track of. Yeah.
All right, Jeff, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell me a joke so funny that it forces me to laugh, like Tasha's City's laughter. Go.
Okay. Okay, two men are going hunting, and
that's not very funny.
two men have gone.
Okay, go on.
2 men are going hunting, and one of them gets mauled by a bear.
Okay.
The guy who didn't get mauled, takes out his cell phone, calls the police, He says, me and my friend were out in the woods. My friend, he got mauled by a bear. I think he might be dead. What should I do? And so the police is like, okay, well, can you make sure that he's dead? And then you hear, "Pat!" Okay, now what?
Okay, yeah. I've heard a joke similar to this one. I sort of saw where that one was going,
right.
But I don't really. Let me give my example of such. It's not necessarily so much a joke, but it's that if I was ever on a talk show, let's say I was on a talk show, and they're talking to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, have you ever wanted to be a Gabe? Have you ever wanted to be a comedian?" I've got a great response, and my response would be, "Well, I always thought it'd be nice to be a comedian, but my big problem is I have terrible comedic timing." You know what I mean? Let me give you an example. All right, Jeff, knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting cow. Who?
See what I mean?
I like how I was anticipating the move.
Yeah, I know.
And so
so the joke is not only that I messed up the timing, I didn't even say the thing that I was.
See what I mean?
Yes, for anybody who is not familiar, let's do the actual version of that joke. Jeff, knock knock.
Who's there?
The interrupting cow.
Moo.
But then in my talk show example, I would not even say moo,
right?
Because I'm so bad at comedic timing. I don't even say the punchline of the joke, let alone say it in good timing.
You would say it a week later on Twitter.
I guess. Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, it's a fairly straightforward item. I guess, let me ask, in what way do you think a staff would aid you in telling a joke? Because that's what I'm wondering about. Is it that, something about somebody says oh, well, how big was this bear that you supposedly caught? And then you raise the stick and you're like, it was this tall. Funny.
I like to think it would turn into a microphone stand.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense, actually. Okay.
That was amplifying. It's amplifying your voice so that it's a 30-foot range.
Sure. So it's not a joke that you whisper into somebody's ear. It's that you say it into the stick and everybody hears it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I like it, and I like the idea of, I don't know if this was intended, but I like the idea that each time something like this happens, it is the staff that is aiding them. So if it is that when you make a saving throw with advantage, it's you make you're falling off a cliff or something and you make a dexterity saving throw. It's that you throw up, you lift up the staff and it catches on something. So you're able to catch yourself that way. Yeah. Or if you're going along a dangerous path, maybe you get to a fork in the road and then you're like, okay, staff, which way do I go? And then you drop it and then it falls and points.
Sure. In
the more dangerous path or whatever. I also like that it leads you down the path that is the most adventurous and dangerous.
Right.
Because I'm always a fan of, I tend to play characters that are big on getting the group together and going on an adventure because it makes it easier for the DM.
Sure.
And I have a character that I've played in a few different campaigns that the whole point is that he is all about the idea of adventuring as a religion. And he's being on an adventure is like communing with his deity. And so with that, I always view it as the adventure isn't just getting from one place to another. It's getting from one place to another in the way that is the most memorable, the most interesting, sometimes the most dangerous. But if a path is if a journey is uneventful, that's a failure, to an extent.
Yeah.
So
that makes me want to think of that religion of adventurers, but that taken to a I don't know, I want to say a bad extreme.
Okay.
Just a corrupted sect of that that religion where you're forced to go on adventures or something. It's such a big deal in the culture in this religion that people are forced against their will to go on adventures, and they're thrown into the Tomb of Horrors.
Oh wow!
It's no, you have to go in there. That is
when it's dinner time, they're dinner is on the other side of the Tomb of Horrors.
Right.
I'm picturing it as the followers being masters of one-upsmanship. You fought a dragon on the way to wherever. I fought 2 dragons and a beholder.
Oh,
one up that. Why don't you?
Ever heard of mind flayers?
There you go. So that could be an interesting character concept and or an interesting plot hook for a sect of corrupted adventurers or something.
Like when a kid grows up to be a certain age, like they have to go through this dungeon, and only the ones that survive,
sure,
truly have reached adulthood or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like, this village is really small. What happened to everybody? Like, they never grow up.
There you go. All right. Well, so that was the walking stick of the fool. I know we went on we took some liberties with that, I think, but again, it's submitted by Jason. So thank you very much, Jason, for that submission. Jeff, if anybody wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Hoard, or questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They can send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com, or they can join us on the Interparty Discord.
Yeah. Well, there you go. All right. Well, before we go any further, we have a giveaway today. And before we get into the giveaway, I do just want to say that we are running low on submissions. I know we're kind of always running low on submissions.
Yeah.
But we're running dangerously low. So please send us an email. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I don't want to spoil.
Yeah,
we'll get to how you can enter in just a moment.
Yeah.
So we are giving away a copy of Chapel on the Cliffs, courtesy of Goblinstone. I keep finding myself forgetting to say what we're giving away.
Sure.
So I want to crack down on that. So it's a great adventure. It's a low-level 5th edition adventure. It's very spooky. It's a lot of fun. So, Jeff, who is our winner of Chapel on the Cliffs today?
Our winner today is Trent C.
Whoa, winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, Trent C. You should be getting that in your email within the next few days. If you don't, let us know. Be sure to check your spam folder, And then when you get it, be sure to leave Goblinstone a review. I think that it's a great product, and they can benefit from hearing people's thoughts on it. Even if you don't like it, I'm sure letting them know what you didn't like will help them to make better products in the future.
Too much cliffs, not enough chapel.
Sure. All right. And Jeff, if anybody wanted to enter this drawing, I sort of teased it earlier. How would they do so?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com, but you want to put Chapel on the Cliffs in the subject line.
Yes. And then whatever you want in the body.
Yeah.
If you want to, you could use that opportunity to submit a question or a magic item or a funeral pyre story.
Yeah.
And then I also want to direct everybody to our Patreon. As always, this show is brought to you by our wonderful patrons. If you go to patreon.com/interpartyconflict, we have a few different tiers of donations on there. For $1 a month, you get outtakes every month, as well as a fantasy fiction story that I write. For $5 a month, you get our monthly bonus podcast, InterPatron-Conflict, which covers various topics from month to month. Also, I have like around monthly or so update where I talk about the sort of fiction I've been consuming, how editing the podcast is going, that sort of stuff. And then for $10 a month, I will write about your character for the fantasy fiction. And also we do a monthly role-playing game over the internet. I always call it a Roll20 game, but it is very rarely over Roll20, actually.
We'll sometimes use the Roll20 tools and stuff like that, but it's not an exclusively Roll20 game.
Right. And actually, I think the day that this goes out is going to be the day that we are doing our game for this month. Actually, I didn't even tell you about this. I'll tell you about it right now. This month, we're not going to be playing D&D, or what we're going to be playing is we're going to be playing Fate Accelerated Edition. It is a role-playing game that I've heard a lot about. There's a game called Fate, and this is like the condensed version of that. Supposedly, it only takes like 5 minutes to learn how to play.
Okay.
So I'm going to... I was looking for suggestions on what stuff to do, because didn't really have anything planned. We've done the Paul Blart Mall Cop game a couple times.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 game a couple times. We've done some D&D, we've done some other stuff in there.
Skylar and I still quote from our last session of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So check out our Patreon, patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different rewards on there, so check out what's on there and see if anything appeals to you.
Yep.
You can help out the show and get some bonus content in return.
Awesome.
And then just one last thing, check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Crit Academy, Justin, Ian, and Brandon create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. D&D Character Lab, Garen and Dan make characters and then debate whose character is better. And Brute Force and Ignorance actually just announced that they are actually putting their show on indefinite hiatus, unfortunately. I guess they've been having some family issues for the various players and such have come up. So,
like any D&D group, there's always that, the scheduling issue and personal stuff like that.
Sure.
So
and
it's understandable.
I can definitely encourage people to take care of your life events first, and then worry about the podcast later. If and when they're able to come back and start up again, that'd be great. But it's been great having them on the fellowship in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Yeah. So check out all those podcasts. Enough of all that. You want to go ahead and get into some questions, Jeff?
Sure.
All right.
Our first question comes from Sean M. on Facebook. How do you make a mystery or surprise that can't just be overcome by a single spell?
Yeah. So Sean sent us this message on Facebook. He actually sent it very recently. And he mentioned, so I've said on the show before that if you build an encounter or an adventure or whatever around something that can be overcome by a single casting of a spell, like, for example, if the whole dungeon hinges upon the fact that the players can't get through this locked door.
Hinge door, I get it. Go ahead.
There you go. If a player shows up and casts knock on that door and unlocks it, then you shouldn't get upset as a DM.
Sorry.
Good job, Jeff.
No, continue.
You shouldn't get mad at the player because the encounter or the adventure or whatever wasn't very good to be. If it was able to be overcome by a spell that the players have access to, it wasn't a very good challenge. And that wasn't necessarily to say you shouldn't ever do that,
right? But
more, you should go in with expectations that the players might come up with something that you didn't think of. So if you really want a challenge to be difficult, it should be like a multi-part challenge, or make it so that the thing that's after the challenge is still challenging even when that original challenge was trivial or whatever.
Yeah.
So Sean was essentially asking, I'll try to sum up what he was asking in a simple way. Like, let's say you put something in your game that you do want to still be a mystery, even though there are certain spells that can overcome certain challenges. Yeah. For example, let's say you give I think the example he gave was the party's going through a dungeon. They encounter like some bad guys or a cult or something, and then one of them with their dying breath bequeaths to the players like a magic ring or something. And the magic ring is supposed to be, as he put it, the plot coupon of plot coupons.
I love the term plot coupon. Thank you very much, Sean. That is amazing.
I don't think Sean made it up. I'm pretty sure I've heard it before. But
but still, you've introduced it to me, and I thank you.
Sure. And so you want this to be like an important plot device, but in theory, the players could just cast Identify on it. Or the bad guys who are trying to get this item could just scry on it using scrying or something like that. Well, so how do you put, because you can still put something like that in your game. So how do you put something like that in your game and have a response when the players say, okay, I just cast Identify on it?
Yeah. Well, I have two solutions to that.
Yeah.
One of them is one of them is hard.
Okay.
One of them's easy, but I feel like it's more problematic.
Okay. I also have an easy and hard solution. So go on.
So the easy solution would be like, oh, you try to use scry on this and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But now the crabby pants rules lawyer player that I am would be like, why doesn't it work? Like, how is that not working? Like the spell specifically says it does that, so like I can see there be some contention between player and DM in that case, but he's just like, no, it's just too powerful, you can't.
Before you get to your hard one, because my easy one is the same thing. It's basically like there can be reasons why low level spells don't work. If in the case of a locked door, this one, the magical lock that is on it is ancient magic and can't be overcome with a second level spell.
Right.
Or it's like very complex and there's like a physical aspect of it too that is resistant to magic.
Sure. Yeah. It's such a complex lock that a simple spell of unlocking, like the spell knock isn't like, is only... Yeah, maybe the spell itself is only so old,
Sure,
like,
sure.
Depends on how magic works in your campaign. It's like, it could be like, okay, depending on where you learned it, you only know how to use it on locks that are familiar to the architecture in the like region that you learned the spell in or something like that.
Sure. And if you want to justify it in the game, you could say it's possible to cast knock on this door and open it, but you have to use a 9th level slot or something.
Yeah,
which the players don't have at that time. Maybe if they didn't do your main quest, but came back when they were, 20th level, maybe they could get through that by casting a 9th level version of Knock.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? That's probably not going to happen. But
I mean, I feel like if you do have that happen, like it's like, oh, you cast lock, Knock on this lock and it's not magical. It's not a magical lock, so like it should work.
Yeah.
Have there be a way for the players to figure out why it doesn't work.
There you go. That is the trick to making this work.
Yeah, so nothing too specific. You don't have to be too specific as to tell them exactly what it is, so they can obviously get around it at that point.
Yeah.
Or at least know what to do to get around it. But yeah, you could say, like, give them a way to figure out, like, okay, so Knock didn't work. All right, well, I guess I have Thieves' tools. Let me try, try a couple things here. And they then quickly realize that this is no ordinary lock, or, like, or this is like made of a special material or something, so on.
And there's I'm pretty sure I don't know if it exists in this edition, but in previous editions, there were spells that you could cast on things to purposely fool low-level divinations. For example, you could cast Nystel's Magic Aura to make it so that an item either had a different magical aura or no magical aura at all.
Oh, yeah.
You could have a magic sword that you cast the spell on it, and Detect Magic does not register it as a magical sword, even though it's on fire. Like,
is that sword magical?
and that can be a clue to the players that, wait a minute, something is weird about this obviously magical sword because the Detect Magic spell is not working on it. That can be a clue. Like you were saying, you have to have a way that the players can figure out why it's not working. It is an indication that there is something else at play here, so that the rules lawyer doesn't say, whoa, Detect Magic doesn't show anything. The DM can be like, I know, clearly it's magical, but the spell for some reason isn't working.
Right.
Similarly with Identify, there can be magical wards on it that are keeping divination spells from working on it, or keeping scrying spells from working on it. That is not a new concept. That sort of stuff has been around for a long, long time.
Right, yeah.
And it could even be that maybe the characters cast Identify in the thing, they get maybe one surface level ability, and then as part of the casting, they can tell there is more to the item, but the spell is unable to determine what else is there. Maybe it's got abilities that are locked away or something. Just because Identify does what it says it does doesn't mean that there can't be something that has been made to fight against it.
Sure.
So the easy answer is it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's the easy way. Justify that however you feel comfortable justifying it. What was your more harder more harder way?
My more harder way was basically change the way magic works in your game.
Okay.
It's basically just like set the rules for. So the way identifying items works, and I'm not 100% sure on this. I feel like there is some or maybe it might just be optional rules or something like that, where like you spend enough time with something, you just know it.
If you attune yourself to an item, you learn its abilities.
Right. I think that is just, what's the point of Identify?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is something, I don't have the text open right now. I think there's a little bit more to what Identify does.
Right. It gives you more of like a history of the item or something too.
Something, but it's definitely less important.
Yeah. Like, I just feel like I feel like that shouldn't be a thing. Cause like the idea of going back to Diablo, where like you got to go back to town to talk to Deckard Cain so he can identify your items and stuff like that.
Spoilers, Jeff. I've never played Diablo. I don't know if that's a spoiler.
Right, no. But yeah, it's like getting your items identified was like a big thing, and maybe it was more of a big thing in video game representations of like D&D and stuff like that.
I know in Neverwinter Nights I don't think you could equip something that wasn't identified.
Right, you had to get a scroll of Identify.
Yeah.
Or you had to take it to somebody who had Identify and pay gold to have them use it. And like the mystery of not knowing what an item does, and like sure you can still have your players like able to attune to it so that they can use it, but not know what it does.
Okay.
So they can use it, but who knows what it's going to do?
Oh, so you're saying if they are not attuned to it, they just find a magic sword, they can use it, but nothing magical happens. If they attune to it, magical stuff happens, but they have to figure out through using it what that magical stuff is.
Yeah, and if done that way without identification, maybe there's some way where it goes awry.
Okay.
I just think it's sort of boring. Like, oh, you just spent an hour with it, and here's the stat block.
Yeah,
It's like, nah, that's not interesting.
No, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
If you are going to change how the rules work, I just encourage you to bring it up to your players as early as possible.
Yeah.
Preferably before the campaign begins. If a DM said to me, hey, I don't like how identifying items works, I want to do it this way instead.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the campaign. That's where we're going in from that point. Okay. Yeah. I'll take it.
And I think that's an easy one to bring up early on, because like there are some things where like you don't necessarily want to bring it up right away.
Sure.
You kind of want some things to be a surprise, even changes in rules and stuff like that, because you want to like subvert expectations and stuff like that.
And there's also a little bit of metagaming that comes in when the DM specifies a noteworthy change in the rules.
Exactly.
Like if the DM says to you before you start the first campaign, so I've decided that in my campaign, vampires suck out your soul, not just your blood.
And it's like
you're like, oh shoot,
I'm gonna make vampires.
I'm gonna make a charter that fights undead.
Right,
and
exactly, and has really good soul retention,
soul power. Yes. So talk it over with your players, and I don't think that's a bad solution. Like you said, that is more work because you have to, you kind of have to like anticipate these sorts of things.
Yeah.
The harder solution that I was thinking of was don't necessarily change how things work, but make there be a reason why someone is unwilling or unable to do so. And it's going to take more work, but let's say let's say the party finds a magic item during some sort of a worldwide event where divination magic causes the caster to go blind or something. You obviously would not be willing, unless it was really important, you would not be willing to cast a divination spell to find out what this magic item does,
right? Because
there's a big chance you might go blind. Or if it is, I don't recall what the casting time is on Identify, but if the players don't have an hour to attune to an item, if they're in a time crunch, they can't do that. Now, of course, on the longer term, that won't necessarily work. But let's say there's an item that is cursed, and anyone who casts Detect Magic on it takes that curse on themselves or something. If there is a reason that somebody would be able to do this but not willing to do it, that right there is going to stop players from just willy-nilly being like, okay, identify on this, identify on that, if there are repercussions for doing so. Now, that also, like you were saying, you have to anticipate it ahead of time. You have to set it up ahead of time, and then you have to pay it off after. It can't be that, the moment we find this item, now suddenly nobody can cast divination spells.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It also shouldn't be, okay, now that we've got this item, and now that we've learn what this thing does by reading a book, now that divination thing is over. You got to make sure that it's something you set up beforehand and has a meaningful payoff afterwards,
right? So
that it doesn't feel like you just put it there to stop the players from doing this. And let me give you some examples from actual fiction. I gave a couple of examples to Sean, and then Sean actually came up with an example that I think is a much better example. I'll use mine first. In a medical drama, let's say you're watching House MD.
Okay.
There is always a simple test that the doctors can do to find out what illness the patient has.
Right.
But there is always one or more reasons why they can't do that test.
Yeah.
It might be that, that test involves eggs and I'm getting in the D&D mindset. The patient is allergic to eggs.
Right.
Or, there's like
the egg test, of course.
Well, I was actually thinking of a TB test is egg-based. So if you are allergic to eggs, you can't.
Interesting.
Or another example is like maybe the patient has some sort of a genetic condition that makes them immune to that test. So that test isn't going to give them adequate results no matter what.
Sure.
There's always some sort of a reason why they can't do the easy thing. So they have to do the hard thing to get around to it. And then the example that Sean gave is much better. Let's say you find a really cool ring of invisibility. And that ring of invisibility would overcome basically any challenge that you come across. But every time you put on that ring of invisibility, the big bad can see you and send his minions after you.
Right. I had been thinking of Lord of the Rings in the back of my mind.
Sure.
When you mentioned they're like a magic ring that the enemy gives you or whatever like that. I don't know.
So there's always ways that you can make it not a great idea to use these simple spells or whatever. But to do so, it does take some more work. You have to anticipate it. You have to be able to find, you have to be able to work it into the story in a way that doesn't feel like an arbitrary obstacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that kind of goes with the problematic of the simple way is to you can't just say, no, it doesn't work. You gotta give it some, there has to be some reason why they're not able to do it or don't want to do it, because if you're just doing it for this one moment, then that goes back to then this encounter or puzzle or whatever, it just isn't, it's not all there.
Yeah. So another solution here is, I'm sure this is not the solution that Sean was asking for, but maybe just let him do it. I mean, depending on the situation, you might just want to ask yourself, how important is it that the players don't do this?
Don't let them do it with a cantrip.
Sure.
If it's something that can be done by one spell, hey, they're using a spell slot.
Yeah.
They're using up resources. Make them pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
If it's okay, if you're gonna just spam the knock spell every time you come across a locked door, I'm gonna have there be a lot of locked doors.
Yeah.
So then you have to weigh that of, okay, I guess I could just keep, casting knock.
Sure.
And then at one point I'm like, well, I only have 2 slots left and we haven't encountered any baddies yet.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do when that happens?
Yeah.
Or, they start, maybe they start bashing down doors. Now they're making noise and creating commotion,
true.
Or maybe they're resting more so that they can get the spell back so they can use knock more.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking up time. Maybe the bad guys show up,
Yeah. I guess I was thinking more along the lines of, you were saying with people just being able to take a short rest to learn take an hour to learn the qualities of an item.
Yeah.
For most items, you're probably not going to care. If it's a +1 sword and the players are level 10 or something, you're probably not going to be upset that the players are able to just do that.
Yeah.
It's only when that one really important item comes along that you'll be, it'll be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Just try and think about whether it is as important as you think it is. It might not be. If it is, I think we've gone over some ways that you can make that work.
I think if it's part of the standard array of magic items where it's a ring of protection or a +1 this, or the stuff you see, the stuff that people kind of put into their minds when they're building their character, when you're thinking of your character several levels ahead and you're it'd be cool if I had this and that, those sort of things. Yeah. You don't need to put too much mystery to them. It's you see a magical ring and they're oh, I hope it's a +1, ring of protection. And
right.
It's yeah, it's a +1 ring of protection. Just put it on.
Yeah.
But if it's a magic item that you made up, or that's one of the ones from the Dragon's Hoard or something that you want to slip into your adventure or something like that. You want to have that little bit of mystery. What is this item? I shout numbers and I can hit better with it. What?
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes. That was the crit katana, I think.
Yeah, or it's the Isasa.
Ikosa. Yes.
Yeah. Go back and listen to the episodes, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some solutions to this. I'm sure you can figure some way.
Yeah.
I guess.
All right, we have a question from Jason the Human on Discord. Do you like the box text in adventures? Now, that's the flavor text, sort of?
Yeah, so in most published adventures, there will be the first room of the dungeon. There will be a little box, usually a gray box of text that you're supposed to read to the players when, the room is a 10-foot-10 square. There is a table over in the corner. The sound of dripping water can be heard nearby.
Sure.
There are weapons scattered around on the ground. That sort of thing.
Okay. So it's a descriptor,
some sort of descriptive text for a room or an event.
Okay.
That's pre-written in the adventure.
Gotcha.
I like these. I think that generally speaking, they're not bad. It's a question of how well they're done.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's good because it gives the DM some of the things maybe to focus on with the players. However, some of the bad parts of it is that, as I've experienced in games that I've run and games that I've played in, once the DM starts reading that box text, no one's going to pay attention. And I mean that even the DM's not going to be paying attention to what they're reading.
Well, I feel like they'll either not pay attention or they'll pay too much attention and they'll focus in on the weirdest detail and then they won't let up on it. Like the whole thing where the players get distracted by something that they maybe misheard it, or because you said dripping something or other. Like, okay, what's that dripping noise? Like, what is that about? It's like, it's just a dank cave. Like it's drippy in here.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with the water. There's not like an ooze coming for you. It's just water.
Right. I feel like every time that I have used box text in an adventure, anytime it's more than like one or two sentences, I'm going to have to go back and paraphrase it after I'm done.
Sure.
Because, if you're having a more conversational type game, and then suddenly the DM starts reading, you enter the room and the room is 10 by 10 and there is a table in the corner. There is blah, blah, blah. And then there is blah, 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 and so on and so on. Yeah. Like part of your brain is going to be like, okay, this is clearly something prepared and I'm going to pay less attention to it.
Sure.
Or maybe like you're saying, you pay more attention to it.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's,
I think with me, like I'd hear one detail of it and then my mind goes to figuring out how to deal with that one detail. Meanwhile, I've missed the rest of it.
Sure. So I think if the DM is able to read it beforehand and then paraphrase it in their own words rather than just read it off, that's probably the best way to do it. But having it is better than not having it. Just one more gripe that I have with it is so often I'll be running an adventure. I'll read, the room is 10 by 10. There's a table in the corner. There's the sound of dripping water. There's weapons strewn on the floor. And then I'm like, okay, what do you guys do? And then while the players are saying what they do, I look at after the box text, I look at some of like the DM only stuff. And at the very bottom in very small text, it'll be like creatures, 4 orcs. And it's like, well, wait a second. Hold on. So there are 4 orcs in this room? Why were the 4 orcs not in? Because then I have to be like, hold on, guys, hold on. I know you just said you were going to go for the table. You just said you were going to check out the dripping and you were going to go investigate one of the weapons on the ground. I forgot to tell you that there are 4 orcs in this room. Roll initiative.
Yeah.
I feel like that should have been at the very beginning. So
I feel like that does happen a lot.
So oftentimes when I do run a pre-made adventure with box text, I will, if there is something in the room that I think is immediately noteworthy, I will write it at the top above the box text because I don't, every time it's like, hold on guys, there's like a dragon in this room. Sorry. I forgot to tell you because it wasn't in the room description because for some reason the room description was more important than saying that there is a dragon.
Right.
Who cares about the dripping sound? There is a dragon.
You can't hear the dripping sound over the beating of its wings.
Exactly. So,
well, yeah, I feel like it's, in a real life scenario or just even in a fictional one, like you notice the thing in the room first. Yeah. Like you notice the dragon first. And then you like, now that the battle has, like the dust from the battle has settled, you notice the room is actually quite beautiful. Or,
See, and I feel like I'm doing the players a disservice if I don't read the box text even when there is a dragon, because let's say one of the players wants to hide under that table,
right?
Or one of the players wants to grab a particular weapon and use it against the dragon. I want them to be able to do that, but it feels odd even if I do write that there's a dragon right at the top. If I say, okay guys, you enter the room and there's a dragon. Oh, and there's also a table and there's like a dripping sound off the distance. It's just, it messes with the flow. So at their worst, I think that box text is clunky, but I don't think it's bad. Under no circumstances would I rather not have it. I just want it to be done well.
I wonder if there's a way to like kind of throw in box text stuff. If it is like a dragon in there, you throw in the box text stuff like in between turns or something like that.
Maybe
it's like, okay, it is now Gabe's turn. Gabe so-and-so just cast a spell. The dragon is in front of you and there are weapons strewn about. Go. You're like, okay, now it's your turn. You just kind of give them like little reminders of stuff so that like, they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll pick up one of those weapons and throw it at it.
Yeah.
I'll try something crazy,
sure.
This turn.
And I could say like after saying you guys see a dragon, have everybody roll perception checks and then give out the box text based on that. But I just feel like if there are creatures that are clearly about to start a fight, then that's just messing with the flow of it,
Sure.
So again, I don't think box text is bad. It's just when it is more haphazardly done, it feels really clunky.
It reminds me of inconsistencies with art, the art and the
sure
and the description and stuff like that, or like the stat block versus the monster art.
Yeah, like when in Shackled City, when an NPC is described as having half plate, but then in her photo she's wearing basically a bikini and a gauntlet.
Right. It's goodness,
so awful.
Or or like they're pictured in it's like they're pictured in robes. They look like they're like a priest or something like that.
Yeah.
And like in their stat block, they're like, oh, they're wearing breastplate right now. Like, wow,
Sure,
their AC's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's at its best when the DM reads it all and then finds a way to incorporate it as best as possible.
Yeah. So read it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one from Jason the Human on Discord. Which style of D4 is better? Number on the base or number on the top?
Now, we briefly discussed this question before recording while we're in the green room.
We're in the green room.
And
the walls are green.
Yes. And there was a
Gabe almost threatened to kick me off the show.
There was an unwelcome revelation during this discussion.
Well, I think I misspoke, honestly.
Yeah, I think you did misspeak, Jack.
Well, because I said I think I prefer it on the base.
Okay.
And then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I feel like I know that's wrong, but I feel like that's how I feel. And then I looked at the dice and I was like, you know what? No, I'm thinking I have a set of dice where I have two of the same color D4.
Yeah.
One of them has it on the base. One of them has it on the top.
Sure.
And I just, the one on the base is more distinct to me because it is weird.
Okay.
Because it doesn't fit. For one, the numbers are small.
Yeah.
And they're on the base. And I think they're even like misaligned.
Oh,
if you know what I mean? They're just sort of off.
Yeah.
So like it's stuck in my mind as like, yeah, this I know that dice. Like I can picture that dice in my head, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yeah, I think I prefer it on the base. But I mean, I guess it depends on the size of the numbers and the font, I guess.
Sure. I guess let me actually explain what this means for anybody. Maybe somebody has only ever seen one of them.
Right. Sorry.
So a D4. It's a 4-sided die, technically is a tetrahedron. Mm-hmm. It is like a little pyramid, like a little 3-sided pyramid. And because it is a 3-sided pyramid, there is no side that faces up, like with all the other dice, with a D6, a D8, D10, etc. There's a side that is facing, like the flat side is facing up.
Yeah.
So with those, it's really easy. You just put the number on the side that faces up, and then that's the one that it rolled. With a D4, however, since you can't do that, there's two different types. One where the number is like at the point. So if you were to, I'm gonna try to find a way to describe this.
So yeah, each face of the die has or not all actually.
Has 3 of the 4 numbers.
3 of the 4 numbers on it.
And then so like if one is sitting on your table and you rotate it, each side will have a 4 that is pointing upwards. Let's say you turn it. Now every side has a 2 that is facing upwards, or a 1 that is facing upwards, or a 3 that is facing upwards, or a 5 for some reason. Except not really. So some of them have the number on the point that's going up.
Right.
So you don't look at it from directly above. You look at it from an angle.
From the side. Yeah, you're
from the
seeing
side.
it from the side, and then whatever the number's at the top.
Right.
Is going to be at the top in all 3 sides.
Correct. There are some, however, that are made by heathens and horrible child killers, maybe.
Wow.
Who knows? Okay, I'm gonna take that back.
I
That's
thought you
slander.
were gonna like name it a specific like dice manufacturer. No,
of course not. So there are some of them that instead of having the number at the top, it has it on the bottom of that side, along like along the base.
Yeah, along the flat base.
Yeah,
like it'd be like the number would be at the bottom.
Correct.
On all sides.
So instead of like turning it around on your desk, instead of having the same number at the top being the same, it is each one will have at the bottom the same number, and then like along the sides there will be like a sideways whatever the other numbers are.
Yeah.
So there's a number at the top or a number on the base.
Yeah, and I think that's why the one that I have has the numbers are smaller, because it like you end up with less space that way.
Yeah.
It's
not using the space as well.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I feel like I do agree. I just also use the one with the base sometimes.
Sure. And I mean, I'm joking. I mean, everybody can have their own preferences. It's just, I just think that it's less appealing visually.
You're just not welcome here. No,
right. Kidding. So it's a weird debate to me because long before I played D&D, I played Dragon Dice. Dragon Dice, I've mentioned on the show before, but it's a fantasy dice-based strategy game.
Yeah.
And is made by TSR, the people that originally made D&D. And I have some of the dice here with me. They had D4s. There were some dice in Dragon Dice that were four-sided. They were magic items in that game, were four-sided dice. But I'm showing one of them to Jeff right now.
Oh.
It is a different design. It is an irregular polygon. Each side is not the same. I mean, they're all the same size, but they're not. Each edge is not the same length. Each side is an isosceles triangle rather than an equilateral triangle.
Right.
I'll post some pictures in the show notes about what I'm talking about. Now, the difference is that with this, when you roll it, each time it rolls, there is a side that is almost pointing directly up. Like it's at an angle, but you end up with a side that is mostly facing up. Right, and all the other sides are not facing up.
Yeah, it is clear which one is facing is up.
So before I ever played D&D, I played Dragon Dice, where this was the only four-sided die that I had any familiarity with. So then when I come to D&D and the four-sided die is completely different and, ambiguous enough so as to strike podcast-ending debates, it's weird to me. It's like, well, why didn't TSR just make more dice like this? Because they already had this design down. So,
well, I just rolled it and I see the flaw immediately.
Why is that?
I can't see what's on top from this angle.
Oh, good point.
From this angle, I cannot see what's on top.
So it is possible for it to land in a way that...
So like the range of from here to here, from where I'm sitting, I don't know what's on top. I have to ask you, hey, what is that? Or I have to turn it.
It's 30.
Yeah. Whereas with this, from any angle, I can see what it is.
Okay. That's a good point. That's a good point. Also...
Oh, it did.
I guess it did work. I just dropped it in my dice tower. I was expecting it to get stuck and then have to
take it apart.
But luckily it did not.
Just smash it with a hammer to get it out of there.
Yeah. So, okay. I can understand that, but, a concession's got to be made somewhere.
Sure.
So, there isn't a wrong answer, but I personally prefer number on the top. I just think it looks better.
I think you're right. You're right. Because it's a better use of the space. You get a bigger number, which is easier to read from further away.
There is also, I've seen, I don't know who makes them, but there is a variety of dice where all the different numerations of dice are more or less like a cylinder. And with the edges are at a point, or kind of at a point, so it won't ever land on the edges. And so when you roll it, it's basically like you're rolling like a square peg.
Yeah.
And then each of the four long sides of that peg has a different number on it.
Yeah.
So I've seen those.
Almost like top or dreidel-like in some ways.
Kind of, yeah. But with that variety of dice, you could do, in theory, any number of sides.
Sure.
It's just a matter of how many, how it rolls or whatever. So that you could have D4s that way if you don't like either of the standard D4s. But, I don't know. I personally, I like the caltrop version.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to step on it because it will stab your foot. It will reduce your movement by half for a minute or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, that's my opinion. Numbers on the top. Jeff, you can say whatever you want,
but we're not friends anymore.
We're not friends anymore, exactly. All right, well, I think that'll do it for our regular questions for today, but we still got our social media questions for the week. So last week's question was, when making a character, do you typically give your character a profession other than adventurer? Why or why not? Do you recall your answer?
Well, I think my answer was I took it too seriously once and made a terrible character.
Sure.
And then from then on, it's just sort of like I might have something in the background. Like it's something in the character's background, but I never really bring it out much in the adventure. Yeah.
I think I said I usually try to, but it rarely plays into the game very much. And then I also gave an idea for a character concept that was largely based around their profession. Yeah. So go back and listen to that if you want that. We got some responses. I don't think I'll be reading all of them, but on Facebook, Craig H says, sometimes it depends on if I feel it will be useful to the story or backstory or just playing the character. One of my characters was a lieutenant in the military and got assigned to a mission with a team of adventurers. Undercover, she got close to them and asked for a temporary relief from the military and was allowed as long as she kept in contact. It was a cool backstory and has added to our campaign in different ways. Sean M says they'll have a background which may include a profession or a series of odd jobs on the way to this point.
Sure.
And Brandon B says, of course they have other professions. I like to make them pretty mundane. Wizard who is a farmer, fighter who was the admin assistant to a lord, bard that was part of an acting group, cleric that was a brewer, etc. And I think that works. I think some of the responses that we got kind of made me rethink my opinion on backstories or on professions. And that's, if a character has a current profession, why are they adventuring? And how do they still do that profession while they are adventuring?
Yeah.
And that's a good point. There's ways to do it, of course, but it's not as, I don't think it's as cut and dried as I sometimes act like it is.
Sure.
Over on Reddit, Javokler says, absolutely. It's not all that often someone is only an adventurer. Typically, it is something they get into later in life. A profession helps build their backstory. Timmy Soup says, of course, I like to think most people have had some kind of profession before something changed, which resulted in them having to become an adventurer. Definitely helps the backstory. And Gizmo Trunks says, for sure, it helps build the character. If you don't have some kind of theme, it's often hard to put together an interesting character. And I think that's what I use backstory, or that's what I use profession for the most, is just what will make this character more interesting than just being I swing a sword and hit stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to be a farmer or something.
Yeah.
You know,
it's something. Yeah, something that give the character context, and like it's something that it's the lens to help that character see the world, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. On Twitter, that's Carl with a K says, definitely. Isn't that the whole idea behind backgrounds? And to an extent, I think yes. Most of the backgrounds are professions.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of backgrounds when we brought this up.
Yeah,
that is a good point.
Not all of them are though. Like especially the ones that have come out in like later books.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of them in Xanathar's
The Haunted.
I wasn't thinking of that one. I was actually thinking of in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. One of them is just you're just a guy from really far away. Like that's your background.
Right, yeah. The far traveler or something.
Something like that. And like, hey, that's fine. That's a cool background for a character, but it's not a profession, you know.
And there were ones that are specific, like guild artisan.
Guild artisan, definitely.
Yeah. I was like,
hermit isn't really a profession. I mean, I guess it could lend itself to a profession, I guess.
I mean, I have a business card that says hermit, but no, okay.
Good job, Jeff. Over on Discord, we got a few. And I don't think I'll read all of them, but Lone Rev says, I don't have much experience as a player, but I would rather discover my character's profession as they develop, not something set in stone.
Sure.
However, I may put something in their backstory about them being of a former profession, which they would never return to. For instance, a former farm owner or soldier. Mary Sue says, I run modern Palladium systems, so my characters have tons of jobs other than adventurer. Mechanics, medics, mystics, singers, actors, circus performers, scouts, recon, spec ops, infiltration, experts, pilots, ... Oh, so wow. The list goes on, I suppose. And Adam B says, always if I feel it helps ground a character in the world, especially if you have worked alongside the DM to flesh out the background's job. And I think that's really cool. Working with your DM, I think, is a good way to give your character a profession, because then if the DM wants to, they can make plot hooks out of it.
Yeah.
You know, you were a farmer and, now your farm is, I mean, I guess the easy thing is your farm is on fire or destroyed or something. But what if suddenly that farm that you abandoned is like the most lush and green farm anybody's ever seen?
Well, yeah,
now you got to go back and find out what's going on.
The ash from the fire was tilled into the soil and it was actually made it more
sure. See,
fertile.
I love when characters give the DM plot hooks, but I have to acknowledge that 95% of the time those plot hooks are going to be used to harm the player.
Sure.
I want players to give their characters families, but then that just means the DM is going to be like, oh, your family member has been killed or taken hostage.
They're kidnapped. That cave you refused to go down, even though I described it in such great detail. Your sister has been kidnapped and taken into that cave.
See, and I want to disparage that behavior from the DM, but I know that that's the first thing my mind goes to.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so professions, I think professions can be cool if they fit into the game and they're not just, superfluous.
Yeah.
So that was last week's discussion question. This week's discussion question is, do you have any experience playing MMORPGs? If so, what is a fun memory you have?
I have played, I wouldn't say a ton of MMOs, but a fair amount.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I ever played was Star Wars Galaxies.
Okay.
No, actually, I technically played EverQuest, but only the demo because after the fact, after my parents got it for me, is when we realized, oh, you need a subscription to play this. This is what?
Yeah.
Why not pay more money? We already bought the game. So I just played the demo a bunch on it. But Star Wars Galaxies, I played a ton of. I played that for years, like when it first came out. And I had some really good experiences with it because I made a lot of good friends on there for a while. Like, it was like, I don't know, like people you meet online, you don't immediately think it's like, oh, those are my friends. But now, I mean, nowadays that's more commonplace.
Yeah.
That you make friends online and you consider them like actual friends because you can spend so much time with them, and you're usually interfacing through like like a webcam or microphone and stuff like that.
Sure.
Since that's a lot easier to do nowadays, you're basically talking to them on a regular basis. They're your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, back then it was through text. It was just a chat, but like I still got to know these people really well. Like I got to know them really well, and I considered them my friends for a really long time. I mean, we got out of touch because like back then it wasn't that easy to keep in touch unless you were playing that game, you know? So yeah, like I've played my fair share of MMOs, and a couple of them I had very good experiences with. One, making friends on Star Wars Galaxies, and two, World of Warcraft. We played for a while.
We did,
and like we had a lot of fun playing that for a good long while. So.
Yeah, no, it was a blast.
Yeah. So,
I played EverQuest for maybe 6 months. I was never any good at it, and I eventually quit because I died and didn't get to my corpse fast enough, and so all my stuff was gone.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what happened in that game. You had 7 days to get to your corpse, or all of the stuff that you had on you would disappear. It would just be gone. And that was a lot of time spent and lost all my stuff. And I was like in 9th grade or something at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand how a lot of stuff worked. So, and it was just really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of the quality of life things that later came into other games. So anyway, I played EverQuest for about 6 months or so, and then eventually I just gave up. I don't think I told my parents to stop paying for it. So maybe they're still paying for it to this day. Who knows?
No, I would imagine once their credit card expired.
Right.
Here's a bad experience with an MMO. I played Final Fantasy 11 for a while.
Okay.
Which a lot of people played, and a lot of friends, a lot of people I knew, I found out later that they played it, and I was like, oh, I kind of wish I got more into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I played it for years, Jeff.
Yeah. Dang it.
Not really.
No, so I played it for a little while, but then like at a certain point, I sort of stopped playing it, but like I kept getting like charged for the subscription, and I was like, maybe I'll go back to playing it. So I let a month go by, and then another month went by. I'm like, shoot, no, I need to get rid of the subscription.
Yeah.
I could not figure out for the life of me how to end the subscription. I just couldn't figure it out. For whatever the interface was, whatever like launcher or the website or something, like I couldn't figure it out because like if I feel like the site I wasn't in full English or something.
Oh.
I don't know. For whatever reason, I could not find out how to unsubscribe. And I was like, well, my card expires in 2 months. I'll just let it run through.
I guess
maybe I'll play a bit more or something. I don't think I did, but
right.
But I was like, well, I guess I don't have to worry about it in 2 months.
Oh, I think with EverQuest, the reason I stopped was because my sister gave me one of the expansions for Christmas, and my computer couldn't handle it. Oh. So I just can't play this game anymore.
Yeah. That's a deal breaker.
I played World of Warcraft though for maybe, how long did we play for? Like a year or so, maybe more?
For a few years. I feel like
together, I don't know if we played for a few years.
Yeah, together I think we played for like, within a year or two.
Yeah.
I mean, like I played it quite a lot over the years, like on and off as expansions came and went and stuff like that. I mean, like I skipped an expansion and I haven't played the most recent one.
Sure.
I don't feel like I'll end up going back to it, but who knows?
Yeah. I think one of my fun memories that I have was less something that happened in the game, and it was more that it was you, me, Jay, and Steve.
Yeah, I think
we would be playing together, and then we'd be going through dungeons or whatever, and then one of us would type into the chat, "You guys want to go to Taco Bell?" And then everybody else would be like, "Yes," and then we would go meet up at Taco Bell.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was a really gosh.
There were some fun times in that campaign.
Yeah, we definitely had some good times.
That campaign, what am I saying?
Right, yeah.
It was in that game. It was a lot of fun. All right. Well, so that's the social media question for this week. Do you have any experience playing MMORPGs? If so, what is a fun memory you have? So, hopefully we'll get some fun stories from that. If they're long, I don't think we'll necessarily cover them on the show, but we'll definitely read them. So that was those were the questions for this week. But before we close out, let's take a deep breath. Let's remember those who have come before us, maybe those adventurers we have, fought Hogger with in the past.
Right, yep.
Who have maybe died against Edwin Van Cleef and other World of Warcraft low-level dungeon boss
Cookie
references here.
What's the
Cookie? Yeah, Cookie's Tenderizer was the weapon.
Cookie the Murloc.
Cookie the Murloc. Anyway, so let's remember those who have come before us, who have died fighting raid bosses and such, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So this week's funeral pyre story was submitted by Nathan via email, and it is titled Rio's Disintegration. Rio Vernove, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Rio Vernove, a wood elf played by Michael Kay, was another of the 4 remaining original PCs. Long story short, one of Dintized princes named Ralzier was originally the antagonist, but eventually befriended the party thanks to Rio's efforts to forgive and reconcile. In fact, Ralzier is now a PC. This pissed off Orthozul, Ralzier's younger brother. Orthozul, infuriated at Ralzier for siding with the PCs, teleported into the city with an elite strike team of demons and orcs. Orthozul told Ralzier that he would suffer beyond imagination for betraying the Dintists. Orthozul threatened to kill everyone Ralzier loved before his very eyes. Ralzier has a wife and child, but Orthozul started with Rio, casting Disintegrate. Rio failed his save.
Oh no.
So, I guess let's raise a glass in memory of Rio, who took one for the team.
Yeah.
Clink.
Orthozul and dentists. Dentists.
I'm not sure if those
orthodontists and dentists. I'm sorry.
Jeez. Okay. I thought that dentists sounded kind of familiar, but
dentists.
Well, there you go.
Sorry.
It's all right. Then maybe I should go back and re-record something about took a bite out of. No, I'm going forward. All right. So that'll do it for this week. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games. You can also find us on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/FriendQuest stream. And I think Griff is going to actually start streaming too. So
awesome. Yeah, cool. And speaking of video games, check out my side project, the Arcade Memories Podcast. If you'd like to submit your own childhood memories of going to the arcade, record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. And so, Jeff, until next time,
be sure
to...